it's never worth it to sacrifice yourself and your happiness because you think you're doing it for your family. It always shows through. There has to be something that makes you happy and makes you joyful. Not just like I should be joyful, but like actually makes you joyful. Because that's important to show kids. I always think like, I don't want my kids to think like parenting is awful. I don't want them to think like you have to give up everything to be a parent, because I think some of the best parents in the world are those who are doing things for themselves, because then they show their kids that this is like, this could happen for you too. So the more parents like that, the better.
Also, when we are drowning in our own pain, it's hard to experience the joy. When we're living in pain, actually being able to recognize and process the joy is really difficult. And so saying yes and processing that guilt and saying, this is an expectation someone else has put on me. I am not taking this on for myself anymore. You can stop the cycle of pain in your life so you can experience the joy. And so that's why knowing, oh, I'm experiencing guilt or I'm experiencing pain is so important, because it helps us to move out of those things.
Absolutely. And that reminds me of, we just had a conversation with, her name's Courtney Carver. She just wrote a book called Gentle. Have you heard of this book?
No, I haven't.
We were talking about how do you find like what you find joyful in life? How do you find like stuff that you like to do that makes you happy? And she said that like so many of us are so busy doing all the things that we don't have the space in our life to actually listen to those signals about what makes us happy and what makes us joyful. And so to anybody listening right now, if you're like, I have no idea what makes me happy, I mean, it could be that there is so much stuff going on that you don't have the room to hear the messages of that.
Yeah. And that leads me to a really great question as well, in asking like, so how can moms reconnect to themselves? You know, if we are super busy, if we do have a lot going on, how can we actually reconnect to ourselves and our families without feeling like it's just one more thing on our to-do list to do?
That is how it's like positioned, I feel like, in the media. Like you should like put that connection time on your calendar so that like you take, oh my gosh, it feels so stressful to do it that way. And I feel like it sucks all the joy out of it as well. The way that I think that everyone can start connecting to themselves is to first figure out what you're even thinking. And one of the tools I use to figure that out is journaling. I used to hate journaling. I thought that I needed to be one of those people who sat down and like had the same journal every day and wrote about my entire day. And somehow like some kind of realization or light bulb would go off and I would find like some big thing in the day, but it just became such a monotonous process and I'd give it up within like a day or two. I would just put off journaling. What does work for journaling is processing really intense emotions and processing reactions, such as when I get angry. I love that that is a moment I go back and journal about later and trying to figure out, okay, I had a huge reaction here. I went from happy to very angry and I have no idea what set me off. And I'll go through like this little process. And you've probably heard the process. It's called like circle thinking, was the way it was taught to me, where you're like, okay, what was I doing before? And then what happened right before my mood changed? And what was the thought I had regarding that incident? Because it's usually always the thought, always the thing you say to yourself that causes that next emotion. And so when I started doing this process regularly in a journal, I started realizing what I was saying to myself and how I was interpreting situations. And that really helped me figure out how to connect back to myself, because then I realized, okay, here's what I could say differently to myself in that situation. Here are situations that really piss me off. And that tells me something about how I should like structure things or be more intentional about things or let things go. It goes back to what you were saying, Tara, about the expectations. What I was expecting of myself was clearly like clouding my whole reality.
Yeah. I love that because that's something that the connection codes has really helped me do a lot. It's acknowledging the emotion and then thinking what thought is tied to that emotion. And I have changed so many of my thought patterns because I was able to finally access, ooh, I got really angry in that moment. Ooh, what was happening for me? Okay, I felt guilt about this. Oh, that's tied up in a thought or an expectation. I need to begin working to shift that. And that process truly has changed my life. I mean, and that feels big. It is big. It really has changed how I show up with my kids in almost every circumstance at this point. But it started with the emotion and then changing the thought. And I do love the idea of journaling. I'm not a journaler yet. It's something that I aspire. Ironically, I have not one, but three open notebooks on my desk right now. I'm like writing all day, which is obscene. I was like,
I have something for that. So like I had all the notebooks too, and then I could not find like which notebook I had my ideas in. And I have ADHD as well. And so like I can't do things on a digital device because I would get on the digital device, something would distract me. And then like 20 minutes later, I'm like, what was I even doing on here in the first place? And so this is something we actually recommend to our balance members as well. It's the Remarkable. Have you heard of the Remarkable?
ooh, I've seen this. Tell me more.
It's just like, think of it as just a notebook. It's just a notebook in digital form, but like it's all my notebooks. So my journal is on here. We give our balance members the balance journal. So for everybody who's like a little like uncertain about journaling, it's like this one page we have people do every day. And it's to set your thought process up in a way that really gives you realistic expectations. So the first box is, what does my mind need to hear? What do I need to tell myself to get myself in a good frame of mind? And what I teach people to tell yourselves is to do like counter to what your inner voice is telling your inner critic. We call that inner critic Bob. His name's Bob. He's a little monster.
Yeah. No offense to any Bobs that are listening, you know.
Bob's no, like, yeah. Please, if Bob is your cousin's name or your brother's name, like some people have told us they have to use a different name for this. But Bob just tries to keep you safe, but he tries to keep you safe by really keeping you down. So like things like I've written in my journal of what my mind needs to hear. Like I am capable. I can figure things out. I have figured things out in the past. People like me and want to be around me. That's a current thing that, like, not current, but it's a frequent statement Bob tells me that, like, I'm unlovable or I'm unlikable. So I'll write that into what my mind needs to hear. And then we have people write down what they want to accomplish that day, just like one thing that's good to accomplish that day. And then the journal page is only half a page because I know journaling when it starts, it is so intimidating to
The
fill up the
blank
paper.
page. Yes.
Yeah, the blank page. So like it's just a way that like I found and I've taught our members how to connect to themselves to figure out really what you're thinking and what your thoughts are.
I love that you're reinforcing the I am statements as well. We talk a lot about identity with the connection codes, and identity is it's in two forms, what we believe about ourselves, but also in relationship to others, like how we feel they view us. Like, are we significant to our partners? Do we matter to other people? All of those things are part of our identity, but we get to tell ourselves who we are. And I have found and how I speak to myself and what I believe about myself has changed how I show up in the world.